Hello, everybody. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard, and I am going to do something I've never done before. And so this is an experiment that we together can do. And I'm going to channel Mahadeva, the Ascended Master who lives at the nexus of all timelines. And what I'm going to do is people have been asking Ophiuchus about the Saturn moon matrix because Ophiuchus was talking about how David Icke was one of his greatest operatives because he interprets things literally. When the information that's coming to him is accurate, he perceives it through his filter of a victim mentality and through a very literal mindset, and then he comes up with his bias confirmation, which he looks for information that confirms his biases, and then he gives them to people. And so Ophiuchus was having a good time picking him apart. So they were asking Ophiuchus to explain about what is the real Saturn moon matrix because of what Ophiuchus was saying, that it's very important that you understand it. And instead of that, what I'd like to do first is I'd like to do something. I don't know if you can do it. I am going to play a recording of David Icke talking about the moon and Saturn moon matrix. And before I do that, I'm going to channel Mahadeva, who, as I've now come to remember again, is actually a moon deity. So if you want to worship Shiva in the aspect of the moon, Mahadeva is the aspect of Shiva to worship. So I'm very interested to hear what he's going to have to say about this whole thing. But I don't know if Celestial Masters do this or not, but I'm going to play David Icke talking about the moon, and I'm going to have Mahadeva channeling through me, stopping and starting and explaining from his perspective what all this is. Now, my experience with Mahadeva, as opposed to Ophiuchus loves to ridicule people and use his sardonic humor. He really loves humans. You should know that. Ophiuchus loves the human race. He believes in the human race, and he really does want to work in combination with Mahadeva to help the human race evolve. But he does it through his method, which is he's one of those people that will say, you can't do that. And what he's doing is he's trying to poke your ego and your pride so that you say, the hell I can't, I'll show you. That's really what he does. So all of his sardonic humor and his seeming, making fun of people and criticizing people, he's actually coming from a place of wanting to stimulate you, and he'll say whatever. I mean, he'll say half-truths, partial truths, complete truths. He'll do all kinds of whatever he needs to do to stimulate your negative human instincts to provoke you to go into the direction where you will find the truth. Mahadeva is very different. So Mahadeva, like the moon, he looks for commonalities. He will not criticize somebody. So if he's listening to David Icke, I'm assuming, we're going to see what happens. I'm assuming if he's listening to David Icke and he's not responding, it may be because he just doesn't feel that there's anything positive he can say about it. So he's not, we'll see. I don't think he's going to criticize David Icke. I think what he's going to do is he's going to only do and say things that, if David Icke were listening, would empower him. But at the same time, he's going to explain, I don't know, I'll see. It's my request. My request for him is to explain all of this. So this is a new experiment for both of us. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, for me to tap into Mahadeva, I chant his 12-syllable mantra, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Mahadevaya, which takes me to the 12th house of my chart, which gets me to see things from infinity and allows Mahadeva to speak from a place of freedom, liberation, moksha, enlightenment for our benefit. So you can chant along with me if you already know it, but let's go ahead and do that. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahadevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahadevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahadevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahadevaya. Hello, my very brave and powerful humans. All right, so I'm excited about this. Michael has asked me to give you my explanation of David Icke's understanding about Saturn and the moon matrix. So Ophiuchus is correct, although he's much more unkind about it. David Icke has received very accurate intuitions about the universe. And like all humans, he's interpreting it through his brain to the best that he can. So there's actually a lot of truth to what he says. I'm going to expand on some of his interpretations to help you understand how beautiful and powerful the moon is and what it represents. So let me tell you what the moon is. The moon is the mind. So this is represented in many of your languages. In the language of Michael Denny, his ancestral language, moon comes from the Germanic word mon. And mon means both human being, both male and female, and the moon, as well as the mind. And this is absolutely how I have and am continuing. Bear in mind that the human evolution, the human creation is an ongoing process. It didn't just happen one day. It is a continuing evolutionary process that I am beaming to you every second of every day. And so there were other words used by the Germanic people to describe, human beings. But this is the one that they adopted, and that's because, as Michael points out, the Germanic people were moving towards a very spiritual way of life. And they were given an opportunity when the Romans came in and conquered Europe. They had an opportunity to listen to their reptilian self and become part of that, or they had an opportunity to stay with their spiritual truth. And if they had done that, they would have been a continuation of the ideal Indo-European religion, which is what happened in India. The Hindu religion was the evolution of that. The Germanic people, through the direction of Odin, the entity, the deity, could have moved in that direction, but they chose to reject that. But they had a very deep understanding, which is accurate, which is exactly where I have been focusing my efforts when it comes to creating humans, which is that human beings are divine mind. So the word man means divine mind in a physical body. So with that in mind, let's see what David Icke has to say. I'm very excited to fill in some of the blanks of his very correct understandings about this.
I've written extensively about the moon. I don't believe, and even more so as I understand more, I don't believe that the moon is a natural body, or at least at the very least it's a construct from a body that maybe is natural but has been, if you like, converted. And
that's absolutely correct. That is 100% absolutely correct. When David Icke stays with his instincts, he's much more accurate. When he tries to explain it and he gets very literal, that's when he can sometimes end up with partial understandings. He's absolutely right. It's a construct. Bear in mind, there are deities, there are entities, there are powers, including you. If you are a human being, you have a soul, which is a celestial deity inside a human body. If you listen to your soul, you will remember creating the moon. It is a construct. We knew that we were going to create the earth as a place for an experiment in conscious awareness in three-dimensional time. So the earth has a very significant, specific vibration that is very conducive to three-dimensional life, obviously. And so that's the first thing. It resonates on a level of manifestation. It is a very powerful feminine energy that is conducive to the union of the power of masculine spiritual vibration and feminine vibration of manifestation. It's the perfect place if you want to create and experiment with life. So that was our design. And as has been revealed to you before, we then, what we did was we convinced the reptilian entities, who are representative of what you would experience as lower vibrational vibrations. These lower vibrational transmissions that resulted in the consciousness of the reptilian non-physical entities, they were drawn to that. It was actually, they were pulled to the earth because we came to them, and they, what they'll tell you is that we started a war with them, which isn't what happened. We simply came to them and we transmitted our energy to them, which their response to it was to run. And so they were looking for a safe place to get away from our energy that we were transmitting to them. And the earth literally pulled them to itself. And they crash landed, quote, on the earth, and they began to create life to hide from the light of the celestial beings. Now, from our perspective, we just simply wanted to employ them, to work with them to create life and eventually create an evolved form of physical life where we could, as souls, we could incarnate so that we could experience it. Now, what you consider to be a young soul, which is, from your experience, somebody who operates from negative vibrations, right? Those are actually, these young souls have never experienced reptilian vibrations, which are located in your nervous system. Your nervous system and the base of the brain, the amygdala, which is reptilian construction, because that is how they are best able to, as they say, hide within manifested life. But unlike us celestials, we like to take our consciousness and we want to put our whole consciousness into one being because we are beings of unity. Whereas reptilians, they will fragment themselves and put themselves into multiple beings at the same time. So the reptilian experience is actually very good for what you are now experiencing in the world, which is mass hypnosis. Because the nervous systems and the fight or flight response, which is a reptilian construction, that works really well. And as you know, reptilians are all about control, and that was one of the things that they created so that they could have a grid, a mass, so that they could control human beings in large numbers. We celestial deities have a different focus. We are seeking for your individuation, because that's where we enjoy. We do have a connection. We are all connected, but we don't get lost in other people's identity. We retain our own individual identity, but we cooperate together as a unit. So it's the same thing. It's unity everywhere, but there's different vibrations and different understandings based on the desires of the beings in question. The reptilians have their own needs and desires, which you experience every day, because your physical selves, your brain, your nerves are a reptilian creation. And so that's why you have such strong physical needs. That's why human beings are predators for the most part, except for those that have chosen not to indulge in eating animal flesh. Human beings are predators. They eat meat, they eat animals, they experience life competitively. You have to be better than somebody else. The whole idea of needing to earn money, all of these things are reptilian concepts, which there's nothing right or wrong. We celestials don't judge any of it. In fact, that's why we incarnate, because we want to experience it. We want to learn about it and enjoy it. And we make it a game so that we can tap into and feel that reptilian influence and overcome it, use it, experience it. We don't have any judgment about any of it. So he's absolutely right. We constructed the moon. As you know from your scientists, the moon is a result of a collision. When the planets were forming, there was a collision, and a large amount of material from the Earth separated, and then in its own gravitational field, it coalesced into what you now know as the moon. And it was, as you know, even your scientists will tell you, you cannot have life on planet Earth without the moon. The moon is absolutely essential. And that is because the moon is, on the physical level, necessary for the creation of physical life, but it is also necessary for the creation of evolved spiritual understanding. So without the moon, your soul would not be able to evolve. Your soul would be trapped. If you were to go into a physical body on the planet Earth that did not have a moon orbiting it, your soul would be trapped and it would have to just watch an animal living out animal reptilian instincts. So we absolutely did construct the moon. It is constructed, as he said. His instinct is right. He doesn't have the complete understanding, but he's absolutely right. The moon was constructed because you constructed the moon. We orchestrated the celestial collision, the planetary collision that created the moon coming off of the basis of the Earth, forming itself, and then revolving around the Earth. We did that because the moon is exactly what he is saying, or almost exactly, which is that I and other celestials, we use the moon as a way to transmit the reflection of the, you want to call it God, the oversoul, but the soul energy. So he's right. The moon was created so that we, when the time was right, when life on Earth had been experimented with by us and evolved to a level where we could create hosts where we could incarnate, we could then keep connected to the divine vibrations. And the moon is that. It is a lens through which we send that information. So meditation is what allows you to get to that universal mind. It is also a means of life force energy, because again, without life force energy, what you call chi or prana, there would be no life. The moon is necessary for the transmission of that energy to Earth. The Earth feeds off of it. The Earth feeds off of the moon. So without the moon, there is no life. There's no chi, there's no physical life, and there is no mind. There is no divine mind that can truly reflect on the sun. So he's absolutely right.
Now, one of the things we talked about during the show was this idea of suppression of people's perception of the possible. And we are going to have to wide open our minds, crash open our minds so wide if we're going to start to understand the nature of the human plight. For instance, the idea that something that is 2,160 miles in diameter, the moon, could be a construct, is beyond the comprehension, the sense of possibility of most people.
It's not at all. You created it. He, again, is coming from the limited assumptions that are driving his lens of understanding the intuition that his mind, his moon, is picking up. So he's making it that there were some physical entities that use some physical technology, but we Celestials don't need to do that. We're perfectly capable of using the forces of the universe to create planets. We don't need to do what he's suggesting.
Because it's just, we can't build that. Yeah, no, we can't build that. But that does not mean that it cannot be built if you understand the nature of reality. And, you know, one of the things that I've been focusing on in the last few years, and I'm a big time at this moment, is the nature of Saturn and what Saturn is. It's very clear that at one point Saturn did not have rings. But
that's actually incorrect. Saturn has always had rings. He is right about what he's saying the rings are for. He's right about that. But no, your physical science is not wrong. You know, the rings are small, bands of dust, particles, and ice that simply are rotating around Saturn. So let's continue.
Actually, I say Saturn is a dwarf sun, a dwarf star. I said Jupiter's the same.
That has some truth to it. It's not entirely true, but he is right. The reason why Jupiter and Saturn are probably the two most influential planets when it comes to your astrology is because of that very truth. Now, we designed it that way so that they would have almost the power of the sun, but it's not that they were suns. If you added more mass to them, there's the possibility under the right circumstances they could have become suns. But that doesn't mean that they don't have those essences. You know, Jupiter and Saturn have the essences and the powers of mini suns, if you will, which is why they are so influential on everything. I mean, physical life is dependent on both of these planets, more so Jupiter than Saturn. But the vibrations of the mentality, your human experience and interaction, instincts, thoughts, and everything are strongly affected more by Saturn than Jupiter. But he's right. That's what the sun is. The sun represents a soul. And these planets are almost to the size that they could have been turned into small suns. We chose not to do that We chose to make them exactly what they are. But he's right about that. They are of the level they could have become that.
The Saturn gives off 2.5 times more energy than it receives from the sun. It is a form of star, not a planet as we perceive it. And the rings are artificial, I suggest.
Okay, I wanted you to listen to his language. See, David Icke has two modes of thought. David Icke is very intuitive. But what happens is that he has his intuition. And his intuition then is filtered through he has some filters. He has some filters which Michael would call victim mentality. I don't see it that way. I see him going through his evolution, and this is, he serves his purpose. He's a very practical individual, so he likes to understand things. But he does have a lack of hope, shall we say, when it comes to his future. So he does operate, I will tell you, he does operate from fear. That is one of the lenses. So what you hear is he's giving his interpretation of the intuition, and then if you listen, he says, "I suggest." Now, his power, he's got a tremendous power, which is he has the power of hypnotic suggestion, and he can suggest to the masses. He can suggest to them a concept. The masses who listen to him, the people who listen to him, will then take that as though he has told them a absolute physical fact, and then they will go and report it as a fact. But David Icke is really, he's just verbalizing his potential thoughts. He really doesn't make any really big beliefs about anything. So if you take him on that level and listen to him from the sense of his intuition, then you can interpret the intuition. What would have happened in the past is that this would have been turned into mythology. The gods living on a physical Mount Olympus, and Hermes having wings on his shoes, and these kinds of things are non-literal physical interpretations so that your human mind can understand it. So David Icke's human mind is trying to understand his intuition, and he's suggesting things in a physical way, which, had this been a different time period, this would have been a mythological teaching that we would have still continued to use today. And mythological teachings have spiritual and philosophical importances to them that are important. Like, what is the meaning of, for instance, Thor's belt? Michael has talked about this. Is it literally that the god Thor, the lightning god, is it a fact that he is a physical being that wears a belt? Well, how could he do that and at the same time create massive bolts of lightning? How can he do that and at the same time be an essence of the planet Jupiter? And so obviously you can't think of the gods, even if you believe in them, and they are real. If you believe in the gods and you connect to the gods, you can't look at that literally. Thor wears a belt, because he'd have to be a physical human being to wear a belt. He's not a physical human being. But the teaching of that is that the Naval Center on the human body is the repository of life force energy. This is why meditators and yogis and qigong practitioners, they focus on the navel. This is why Mike tells you to close down by putting your palms over the navel and pulling the energy, allowing it to coalesce in the navel, because that's where the human body processes external life force energy to create an even larger energy system in the body. So that's what he's doing. He's talking about things through his intuition in a way in which it would be better absorbed and used by people if it were interpreted less literally. But bear in mind, he's suggesting. He's very careful not to say this is an absolute fact. He very rarely does that. It's his followers that do that.
And there's a man called
bit.
Sun, the dwarf star. I said Jupiter's the same. The Saturn gives off 2.5 times more energy than it receives from the Sun. It is a form of star, not a planet as we perceive it. And the rings are artificial, I suggest.
Did you hear that? He says the rings are artificial, and then he thinks better of it and says, "I suggest." Artificial means that it was, first off, on a very superficial level, artificial means it was created synthetically. Artificial actually means created with a purpose. And that is true. There is a purpose to the rings, that we have created that. Because, as he said, Saturn gives off more energy than it receives. Saturn is a projector. And the rings are the antenna. But the rings are made completely of organic material, as I said, dust, rock, ice, gas, things like that. But they serve a very important function, which is to transmit the power of Saturn. And he's going to go on to explain. Now, astrologically speaking, Saturn represents order, represents the rule of law, represents karma, represents justice, represents the punishment, which is really the balancing out of out of balance activity. And so he's going to explain that, but he sees it from a different perspective. He's making assumptions that, as Michael would say, are inaccurate, coming from his own lenses through which he has yet to get beyond his need to physically interpret everything. You know, he has the soul of a mythological teacher, and he's perfecting it. So he will get to the place in future lives where he will be able to actually deliver this. This is really, he's working towards it. And this planet is a school as well as a laboratory. And there is, you know, as I said, you have to look at human life as a process of evolution. So that's how I see him, and I appreciate him, and I'm continuing to work with him on a level, but I accept him exactly where he's at. And I appreciate the awareness that he does bring to human beings. Let's continue.
There's a man called Norman Bergrun who has a long history in aeronautics and space research and science and that whole arena. He's in his 90s now, but he wrote a book some years ago, back in the 80s, I think it was, called The Ringmakers of Saturn, because he observed from the pictures sent back by the Voyager missions, Voyager 1 and 2 to Saturn, also to Jupiter, but to Saturn then, that there were gigantic electromagnetic phenomena in the rings of Saturn that were actually creating them. This all fits with what I say Saturn is, which is a gigantic broadcasting system.
That is in essence true. It is, as I said, a broadcasting system. Saturn is, from your perspective, it is a planet, a giant ball of gas, but it is an entity. It is a deity in its own right. And it is, you know, this whole solar system is focused on planet Earth. Planet Earth is the focus, which is why people in the Middle Ages saw the Earth as the center of the universe. It is the center of the focus. All of the planets are focusing on that because this is where deities come to learn and to grow. And it is through the planets that human beings, through the moon especially, are able to process information and either evolve or choose to have experiences where they learn and grow. None of that is untrue. I mean, this is very common spiritual knowledge, but bear in mind that this is appealing to people who are in between being complete atheists and having a spiritual path. So it's pseudo-spiritual, which is why it aligns, why there's so much focus on the reptilians, because that's what the reptilians are. The reptilians are spiritual beings that are almost in physical form. They're very dense energies that are almost manifested in physical form, which is why it is possible to see them, sometimes to have visions of them or to see them, interact with them. When people experience seeing reptilians shapeshift, which, by the way, again, David Icke, he gets his information because he's very impressionable, and then he very quickly takes. He's got bias confirmation, so he looks for information to confirm his intuitions, which he interprets very literally. And so the whole reptilian aspect of him came from experiences that he had. He had his intuitions about the nature of reptilians and human life. And again, he's going through his own spiritual process, his growth. And he talked to people who told him that they saw members of the royal family shapeshift into reptilians. And he then decided that that meant that they were literal, physical reptilian beings. He took Zecharia Sitchin's information and took that and started creating the whole idea of the Anunnaki, which is, by the way, the Anunnaki are simply the mythological gods of the ancient Mesopotamian people. It's not this literal thing that's been turned into, but this has to happen. Human beings have to go through this because it's a stage of spiritual development. The stage below the common understanding of reptilians is to be an atheist. And atheists are people who are afraid, and they're afraid of all beings in control, and they've been damaged by the religious systems, modern religious systems of the time, which are very reptilian in nature and are very controlling and have to do with control and manipulation and death and condemnation and guilt and all those kinds of things. So atheists very rightly rebel against that. So, but their understanding, since their only understanding of spirituality is archons, rulers who rule over you and control you, they understandably rebel against that. And so they just reject spirituality in general, any spirituality. So one step above that, which is the atheist, need to protect themselves from being abused by authority figures. The next step above that is the reptilian. And reptilians believe in spiritual power. Specifically, they believe in non-physical power, which you would experience as black magic. And that's the lowest level of non-physical reality. They still rebel against us celestial beings, and they want to physicalize and literalize everything because it makes them feel like they have control. Jehovah is a reptilian construct. The worship of Jehovah, the God who looks down on you and who judges you, the worship of Jehovah keeps you in a reptilian mental vibration, which then as we talked about earlier, the collective unconscious through the nervous system of the human body can be controlled. This is why as the reptilians started to gain traction over periods of time, there have been periods of time where the reptilians have gained traction. Your Vedic astrologers will call it Kali Yuga, which had its zenith during the Middle Ages. And that's when the worship of Jehovah was at its greatest. And this is a very reptilian concept, because reptilians have gone through periods where they believe they're gaining control over whom they believe to be their creation, which is human beings. The truth is, it's a collaboration. We've been working together. In fact, everything they've done, we've guided them from afar. They won't tell you that. They'll tell you that they did it themselves. But we were actually guiding them because we wanted to experience everything as it is unfolding. And that's why human beings will eventually evolve to phase out of this existence. And many of your spiritual masters have achieved this. They have raised their vibration through their energy practices, through their meditative practices, to get the cells of their body to vibrate at a level where it phases out of deep three-dimensional existence. They still exist. They still have bodies. They still walk around. You call them immortals. There are certain kinds of ascended masters. I'm not one of those. I was one of those. I have moved to a place where I live where I want to live now, which is eternal bliss in the nexus of all timelines. And just because I love the bliss. So anyway, let's get back to it. So I'm just interpreting for you, again, if you understand that everybody is operating from truth that is coming to them, but because they live in a limited environment, because they have their own limited lenses, they get part of the truth and they interpret it as best they can. It doesn't mean that they're incorrect. From other perspectives, it might just be incomplete. But as I said, you have the base level, which is pure animal. And then above that, you have the reptilian, which is animal as well as non-physical reality. And then you have varying levels above that. So if you take the same information and interpret it at levels that are higher than the reptilian vibration, then you don't have to always see things as being negative or being controlled by archons, etc., etc. But from our perspective as celestials, we don't judge you for going through that. And we don't judge you if after you leave one physical life, you manifest or go through a lower level vibration of experience. Your soul will move beyond that. And it's all a journey. It's all a journey of consciousness and awareness and learning and evolution. And when you are done with this matrix, which is a construct, when you're done with that, you'll be able to leave it. And you can leave it whenever you want. Truth is, if you don't leave it, it's because you don't want to. And you tell yourself, I can't. I would if I could, but I can't. But that's part of the whole drama that you've chosen to, the play you've chosen to be in. You're just like an actor in a play. You have taken over a role which you have convinced yourself is real. Just like an actor does when they're on stage, when they're really deep in their character, their emotions and their nervous system respond as if it's real, and it makes for very entertaining entertainment, and it's also fun for them. So let's see if there's anything more here that I can add to your experience of this.
She's broadcasting this fake reality in league with the moon, which is like a something that picks that up and amplifies it at the earth, so we get it big time strong.
Okay, that's not entirely accurate. Him calling it fake is really his emotional resistance to the idea of karma. So what we have here is we have somebody who has a fear of karma. And he doesn't understand what karma is, because he does have, as Michael would call it, a victim mentality. So he has to interpret it as being a fake reality. It is a matrix. It is an illusion. But the reaction to your actions and your thoughts, which you perceive as karma, is not fake. It is something that you have created and you must experience. And you can drop it at any time you want when you're done with the whole karmic thing. But this is really coming from a place of what Michael would call denial. He's in denial of his own the consequences of his own actions and thoughts, and he is afraid of it. And again, he has past life issues and childhood issues which are clouding his perception of what reality is. So again, he's seeing things through his perspective. The moon and Saturn are in league because all of the planets are in league. All of them. And they are all different vibrations of the infinite mind. They're all different vibrations of that. And they create a dynamic balance. And you can call that fake if you want. And they are in league, but not in the way that you think. There are many people, because of the lessons that they need to learn, have chosen to attract and vibrate very specific, perhaps what Michael would experience as unbalanced aspects of, say, if somebody has too much Saturn influence, quote unquote, then they will operate from experiencing more harsh, quote, judgment, things like that. They will experience more difficulty and challenges. They will experience more criticism within themselves, criticism of others. But that's just a vibration that you can phase in and out of. So David Icke is kind of locked in it. And what he's doing is he is learning. He is learning to go beyond this. His lesson will be, as he continues, his lesson will be one of he'll go in the opposite direction of Jupiter. Right now, he's focused on the power of Saturn, which is constriction, judgment, karma. But when he moves through that lesson, I've seen him do it because again, I'm at the nexus of all timelines. He's going to go into he's a very extreme guy. He's going to go into Jupiter. Next time around, he's going to be somebody that is, there's no limit to anything, and everything is love and everything is beauty. He's going to operate from the expansiveness and the non-judgmental, loving, spiritual essence of Jupiter. Right now, he needs to learn lessons from Saturn, which is what he talks to, and he relates to a lot of other people who are learning lessons through Saturn. If you want to learn how to avoid that, or to transition through that more quickly, listen to Michael Mahadeva and follow his path, because that is one of the best ways and fastest ways through the challenging, unpleasant experience of the Saturn influence. So let's see if there's anything else that I can respond to here.
And this is the way that at least part of this matrix is formed.
Haven't you written in the past, though, that, and let me go back to Mars for a second, David, and all this stuff is in your books, and it's...
All right, so I believe they're going to go into something else having to do with Mars, and I wanted to focus just on Saturn and the Moon. All right, so those are my interactions with David Icke. I don't have criticisms of him. I actually am very proud of him. He's a very, think about what he's gone through in his life and what he has, he is brave, and he did some things in his early awakening that took a lot of guts, and he continued to work through those challenges. And of course, he's having such a powerful influence, and he is one of the voices of reason in this time of reptilian mass hypnosis, which is going on. So Again, from my perspective, I don't have any judgment. I understand human beings, or there's no such thing as a human being in his or her human form that is, completely infinite, because of the nature of three-dimensional reality. So, everybody's got their limitations, and I don't judge or have any negative feelings toward that. I see his progress, and trust me, he will be a powerful teacher, not only in this life but in later incarnations as well. He's well on his way, and he hasn't reached his capacity yet. So I'm very proud of him, what he accomplishes, and I'm very happy for what he does and what he teaches. And there's a lot of people that resonate with him, and he's actually helping them. The focus on the reptilian vibration is absolutely necessary, because, as I said, it's a way past complete. It's an evolutionary ladder, and you have to go through that level to get to the next level. Okay, so I don't feel the need to comment on anything else other than to tell you what an exciting period you have coming right now. You have no idea what's coming for you, but it is phenomenal and amazing. And this life that you live, the Earth in this timeline that you're experiencing, is one of the most exciting periods to be a human. And you are about to experience a massive awakening. And I won't say anything more than that, other than to suggest to you that people like Michael Mahadeva and other teachers who are bringing you the power of the moon, because the moon is extremely powerful, and the moon is in fact the main lens through which the celestials drive evolutionary power. And that is why meditation, energy work, mantra meditation, the kinds of things that Michael Mahadeva is teaching, it's absolutely necessary. Now, Michael's true path is actually driven by the moon. So this is why he and I have such a strong connection, because I am the vibration of the moon from the highest perspective of what you perceive to be awareness, the word you call Shiva. This is Mahadeva, the great light. And the moon it takes the light of the celestial and it focuses it. And it focuses it on Earth. And you human beings have these minds, which, Michael would say no other animal has, which isn't true. Other animals do have mind in a different way. But you have a very special mind that is not your intellect, it is not your brain. You have a very special mind, which is the moon. So work with the moon. Working with the moon, going out in the moonlight, focusing on the phases of the moon. That's why the Vedics would take their soma drink and they'd put it into the moonlight and they would chant mantras to it. If you have gemstones that you use, put them in the moonlight. The most powerful moonlight is as it's coming to the full moon. The day before the full moon is the most powerful for charging objects, and it's the most powerful for focusing your mind on that. It's the most powerful for energy work, all that kind of stuff. So I'm here for you, and I am here with you when you meditate. When you meditate, you have the ability to come where I am, which is at the nexus of all timelines, where all true fulfillment exists and where all peace exists. So I invite you to come and be there with me, and I'm constantly sending out my vibration to all consciousness, including human consciousness, and you can access me through your meditative mind. All right, so I will now give it back to Michael Mahadeva, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Okie dokie. Well, he's much kinder than I am. But I'm trying to allow myself to become more like Mahadeva, because he just doesn't have any judgment. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. I don't have anything more to add about that. If you have any questions for Mahadeva, you can leave a question anywhere, and I will, if I like the question, I will ask him the question and see what he has to say. Okay, best of luck to everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy your human life. I'm going to meditate on what I just heard. So that's it for me at this point in time. I'll see you guys soon.